So we've had a really strange situation over the last couple of weeks with our bank, which I thought I'd tell you about because either you might have experienced it yourself or you might experience it in the next coming weeks, because if they're doing this routinely, it's going to happen to other people. And the reason it's of a bit of concern is because what they're asking us to do goes against my general guidance, and indeed it goes against the bank's general guidance for dealing with and preventing cybercrime and fraud. This is where it gets interesting. So a couple of weeks ago, we received a text message to say, we'll be attempting to call you today on this number to discuss changes to your business. If you missed the call, you can look us up. Now, the message apparently came from the bank name, but it didn't show a phone number. So when it said, we'll be calling you from this number, the number wasn't immediately apparent, even when we clicked into it. It just showed the name of the sender. I don't know if you've received messages like that before, but sometimes on certain phones, it doesn't show the number that it came from. And there's even now services to block numbers like that are unsolicited from numbers you don't recognize and so on. Anyway, so sure enough, an hour or so later, we got a phone call, or rather missed a phone call, from a number we don't recognize, which left a voicemail. And with all respect to the person leaving the voicemail, it was quite clearly an overseas call center of sorts, which sounds conspicuously like fraudsters at times. And so that was a bit strange by itself, because we don't know whether it's really the bank or whether it's a fraudster, because they can sound the same sometimes. I've certainly received my fair share of fraudster phone calls to say, you've bought this thing from Amazon. I'm like, no, I haven't. And they're trying to, con me out of some details. I've got to give them all my details and stuff so they can cancel the order. You know the drill. So we received this voicemail to say, we need to speak to you. We're going to call you again. And you need to answer the phone next time, whatever. So we actually called the bank to proactively, because, banking terms and conditions, you need to cooperate with the bank, you need to speak to them and all that sort of stuff. It's all in their terms and conditions. So you do need to speak to the bank if the bank wants to talk to you and ask you questions. Otherwise, they do really stupid things like closing down your accounts and whatever. So we rang the bank to say, we're calling you because we've received this message, we've received the voicemail, and we want to check that it's really you. Now, whilst that sounds simple, it took almost an hour to bounce around different departments, talking to different people, trying to figure out whether they really tried to call us. And eventually, we found out that they were really trying to call us. So we said, great, what is it you want? And they said, well, let's call him Steve, not his real name. Steve is dealing with this query. It's a routine query, they said, but it's got to be Steve that deals with it. So Steve will call you back. And so we said, well, no, we're going to be in the same position, because Steve is going to ring us back and ask for personal details to verify the account. But we don't want to give details to someone we don't know, because they are unverified to us when they call us up. Now, this is where it goes against my guidance, because if anyone rings you up, I would say don't give them those details. And, don't just assume that it really is the person, because that's how many people have been scammed before now. They've received an unsolicited phone call out of the blue, and they've given them details, and they've gone around in circles, and some people are then even duped into giving them a secure password or whatever to their phone, and they say, you need to give us this because, otherwise we're going to do X, Y, Z, close down your account or whatever it is. So my guidance is always don't give details to someone that you don't know over the phone. And indeed, the banks say you might get unsolicited phone calls, unsolicited emails, unsolicited messages. And the banks generally say don't respond to those. But this is precisely what the bank was saying to do. You will receive a phone call out of the blue and you need to verify yourself when they ring. So we said, well, no, look, we don't want to do that. We want to just have it by secure message, secure email, or even by post if that's absolutely necessary. And so they said, no, we can't do that. And it needs to be by phone call. Steve needs to phone you. And we said, no, just do it by secure message. Just say, we don't want a phone call out of the blue. We're not, we are being cooperative, but we don't want to deal with an unsolicited phone call because, we're a law firm. We're not going to answer unsolicited phone calls and start giving out personal information. They said, okay, eventually. They said, we'll put a note on there, no phone calls. A week or so later, we receive another message We'll be attempting to call you today on this number to discuss changes to your business. If you missed the call, you can contact us. And then sure enough, we received that phone call. Now, we answered this phone call, but we said, well, with all respect, we don't know who you are. We are, if you are the bank, we are prepared to be cooperative with the bank, but we're not prepared to give details to someone we haven't verified over the phone. So did you not get our message to say no phone calls? And they said, no, we didn't get that. And then we had the whole conversation again to say, well, we don't want to verify our details to somebody we don't know. And there's one interesting bit that I missed out as well. When we got that phone number, we ran it through Google, as you all do. You do it. You get a missed call, or sometimes you deliberately screen the call and you take the number, you Google it to see whether it's a spam junk number. Okay. So sure enough, this number popped up. Loads of people reporting it as a scam number, pretends to be the bank in question. And also in the search results was a X thread, or I think it might have been Twitter at the time still, to say that from that bank to say, this is not one of our numbers. Now, maybe it is, and maybe the Twitter thread was wrong. Maybe the person posting it on Twitter was wrong. But sure enough, the Twitter thread said that that number was wrong. Now, on the balance of probabilities, the fact that we spoke to the bank and they said, yes, we do need to call you to ask you a very routine question, but we're just asking you a routine question, that suggests that it really was the bank that was calling. But we are not going to take that chance to give out personal details to somebody we don't know, that we haven't verified. You see, that works both ways. They want us to verify who we are to speak about the account, but we don't know who they are either. So we always recommend, I certainly always recommend, if you want to speak to the bank, you phone the bank. And if you're in any way unsure about how to spell the bank name, then I would still search for it and then double check and really be sure that you are on the proper bank website and you've got the proper bank phone number, and you ring them, and then you know that you're speaking to the right people. And that's our general guidance, because otherwise you don't know who you are speaking to. And even some of the emails from the banks that we've received and other people have sent to us to ask us about say fraudsters are trying to get your details, and one of the common methods is phone fraud, where they can even spoof the number to look like the bank's number when they call you to ask for your details. So it's no wonder that really all of this fraud goes on when we've spoken to the bank and they've said, yes, we are going to call you to ask for details. And then we receive those calls. So on the balance of probabilities, it probably was the bank trying to call us. But nonetheless, I have to practice what I preach. Not that I like to preach, but I have to do what I say is best practice, which is not to give out details to somebody that randomly phones me up, because we can't verify them when they're an incoming phone call, because they might even spoof the number, because whilst they call them smartphones, they're not necessarily that smart. There is the technology around to spoof a phone number so it looks like it's really coming from a bank's phone number. And coupled with the fact that we looked up this number online and one of the threads from the official bank said this is not one of our numbers, even though I think it probably was. This whole thing is just ridiculous. So my guidance stands, which, as it happens, coincides with the bank's guidance, which is don't give details to people that ring you up out of the blue when you're not expecting it. Even though we received a message to say, we will be calling you. That could all be part of a scam, because fraudsters will take several steps to convince you that it really is the bank that is trying to get in touch with you. So they'll use multiple layers. They'll use multiple methods of trust gaining and deception. One of which might be sending you a message to say, we're going to call you. And then you receive a phone call and you think, aha, I'm expecting that phone call from the bank. It's them. And it might not be. And so I just found this thing very strange. And the reason I find it so strange is because I genuinely do believe that it is the bank trying to call me, because we spoke to the bank and they said, yes, we do need to speak to you about this, and we'll call you back. And that was us actually phoning the bank from the bank's website, the bank's number. So it's definitely the bank that we spoke to, but they said they're going to call us. And I find that really bizarre. So if that happens to you, make a complaint to your bank. Just say this is running counter to the standard common sense guidelines in the modern day to not give these details out to somebody that randomly phones you up. I hope this helps somebody, and I hope they stop it, because this is going to lead to more fraud. Because if the banks are genuinely telling people that you need to do this, that's just playing straight into the hands of the fraudsters. I hope you found that useful. Please do like the video, subscribe, and as always, thank you for watching.